Hey everyone, this is Alex. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk about Rivian, something that I've been meaning to talk for a long time, because what we have here behind me is Rivian R1T, which we got long time ago. We got it back in March 2022. It's essentially one of the first Rivians delivered. Well, technically it was the first quarter of when Rivian was delivering vehicles to their customers. This is 3,000 something win, and it was delivered at the end of March of 2022. Since then, we've added about 18,000 miles on it. So it's been almost a year and a half, and now it's 18,000 miles. But also we've had a loaner for about 2,500 miles, and also we had a loaner when this car was in a shop fixing the minor stuff in the exterior mostly, and we put on that loaner about 2,500 miles. So I would say that we had Rivian for over 20,000 miles. So we don't do like the off-roady stuff. We don't go on campsites. We just use Rivian as the normal car, so to speak. We have a big property, so the truck is actually beneficial to us than the SUV. So since then we were moving last year, so I rented a U-Haul trailer and I hauled several trips with stuff back in the trailer. Range was obviously not great with that, but Rivian definitely helped. I'm also using it to bring stuff to the property, like haul stuff around the property, essentially grocery getter and the commuter car, and everything in between, except, like I said, the travel stuff. We also didn't do any long trips like the cross country or stuff like that. I recently did a trip about 300 miles. Funny enough, when I came home I had almost 40 miles of range left, so this is great. So I'm gonna talk about the experience of Rivian, having Rivian for this period of time, for driving this many miles, what I like, what I don't like, and hopefully you'll learn something about Rivians. So let's go. Helping me today also is going to be Atlas. Atlas. This is our German Shepherd dog. You can see him on my t-shirt. It's actually not him, but it's just a German Shepherd t-shirt that my mom got me. He helped me change oil in my Cobra the last time I was doing that, and that's the puppy that started it all with us moving last year. So it's a crazy story a little bit. So one thing that I probably should address immediately about Rivian is charging. Since I mentioned that we were not doing any long trips, but I used EVgo, I used Electrify America several times, but mostly we charge the vehicle at home. We have installed a Rivian charger, and we are just charging the vehicle overnight. We use time of use option with Pico, the power provider in Pennsylvania, so which gives us from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. like the cheapest electricity rate. So that's where we just schedule the vehicle to charge, and that's it. Charging overall is fine. There were, especially in the beginning of last year, like there were cases where I would come to the Electrify America station and it would say that it's open, but several chargers would be out of order. Sometimes the charger would not start charging the vehicle. There were some other issues here and there, but overall, since, like I mentioned, we mostly charge at home, we don't have any major hiccups. There was an issue with Rivian, which was introduced in one of the updates. If it's hot outside and in the garage and the charger plug gets hot, vehicle would stop charging, which was a bummer because you would plug the vehicle in hoping that it would charge overnight, but it would start charging, overheat, and just turn off in an hour. But Rivian addressed that with an update. So now essentially, instead of 11 kilowatt hours of charging that you would usually get, it would lower to 7-8 kilowatt hours and just charging it slower. I hope once the weather gets colder, it actually gets better. So we'll see. Okay, I don't know if I should address that immediately, but maybe I should, because There is a big thing that I don't like about this car is the lack of support for CarPlay and Android Auto. And I know that Rivian is sort of like hesitant to doing it, like because they want to control experience or whatever, but I feel like catching up with Google or Apple with all of their resources for the like entertainment experience or navigation experience, the Rivian system is not there. And I don't know, maybe half of my pain will disappear once they at least introduce support for Apple Music instead of, I don't know, full-scale CarPlay. My other car has CarPlay, and like every time I get into vehicle, I'm like, come on guys, it's like, it's not that hard. Technically, I'm sure it's not that hard, and there's no licensing fee or whatnot. It's just that Rivian feels like they're lose control over the experience, and that's why they're not doing that. I don't know, I kind of get it, but at the same time, as an end user, not sure I'm a fan of that decision. So over this year and a half, we also had some issues with Rivians where we had to use the mobile service appointments, except the body panel stuff where I had to take the vehicle to Brooklyn Service Center. Everything else was addressed at home. So specifically, there were a couple of recalls when they were fixing fasteners on the steering system that were not tightened properly on some of the vehicles. So yeah, there was a mobile technician that came and checked that. Our vehicle was not affected by that, but still they checked. There's an airplane right above us. I hope you can see it. Have several airports in the area, so that's kind of fun when they are flying around. The other thing that we had to call the mobile appointment for was the FM radios just stopped working. Like when you turn on the FM mode, it would just not catch any stations, would be silent, not showing the range, nothing. So when I got the mobile appointment guy, he came and he diagnosed that the actual FM module of the radio was, I don't know, not working. So he replaced that. It took probably like maybe half an hour. He took apart like half of the console in the front, but then he was able to swap the module, and everything was fixed. So that was sort of, I consider, an easy fix, but still that's something that we experienced. I actually have a service appointment scheduled for September with Rivian for some of the issues that they are fixing in the early cars, but I'll get back to that a little bit later. I just want to talk about the car first. Let's go just from front to back, and I'll say what I think about the car in general. First thing, I want to address this charging port. In one of the videos last year, I said that it's probably going to be the first part to break, but I was wrong. I'm fine admitting that. It works fine, still opening and closing. There was never any liquid in there. So that's one of the things that really works. I had no issues with that. As you can see, the front is a magnet for all kinds of insects, which is kind of understandable considering how vertical the front is, but it's something that in the summer especially is like you have to work really hard to get rid of those insects. I wanted to address this thing with the hood. Obviously the whole car is aluminum, and the hood, I would say, particularly thin. I forgot a couple of things that I want to mention here. First thing is that this charging pad, which supposedly charges 2 phones, useless, absolutely useless, unless like if you have a phone in a case, it's just that it never sticks, never charges, it slides around, useless. So we ended up having the separate charger and the phone holder installed here. And the other thing is kind of funny. So here there's the speaker, fancy sort of outdoorsy speaker that Rivian gives everyone, at least for now in launch edition and other vehicles. I'm not sure if that's going to continue. You pair that speaker with your phone, but I've had it multiple times and I just ended up removing that Bluetooth device from the list completely. It's rather just a useless feature or something. I don't know, there's something wrong with that particular speaker, that it wants to connect to your phone and just play music. I don't know what's happening there. Going back to the service appointments, as I was saying, That service appointment is something that Rivian is going to address the half shafts problem, and I'm just going to read here because obviously that's much easier. But it says that the FSAM 407 install washers on all 4 half shafts, which essentially, if there is an inadequate between the half shaft splines and the wheel hubs, they may result in the loss of torque of the half shaft bolt and subsequent noise and or separation of the bolt and wheel center cap. Doesn't sound very good, apparently not that critical and urgent, but that's something that I've read that a lot of cars had. So Rivian continuously update those things, and they fix those for the early cars. But there are 3 other things in the work order for that service appointment that Rivian added manually. I've read, and it seems like this is the list of problems that we had. Some of them we had on the loaner that we had, and so it's probably typical for the early vehicles or early Rivian vehicles. So what they are doing is that they are also replacing this molding between the fixed part of the glass and the moving part of the glass. And specifically on the loaner that we had, these things were essentially falling off. I taped them to the glass when I was returning the vehicle, and I said, guys, this is not me, it was falling off by itself, so don't blame me. And looks like Rivian is addressing this now. Another thing that Rivian is going to do, FSA M1105, remove upper forward clip tower on left hand and right hand upper C-pillar trim panels. So I assume that's what they are talking about, this panel. And on the loaner, this cover was falling off. So I guess they also discovered that, and they are fixing it in the early cars. And the last thing is the FSAM 844 replaced the bed storage compartment seal. So that's interesting. So I mentioned that the compartment with the spare wheel gets a lot of dirt and probably leaks some water. I don't know, I haven't seen water there, but who knows. So it looks like Rivian is addressing that as well. Hopefully that's gonna improve the dirt collection. Actually, wait, probably it won't, because the way I understand this work order is that it means that they are addressing this rubber, but the dirt is collecting all over in there, and it's not a beautiful sight. And by the way, one thing that I also noticed, that when you are closing trunk, if you have something on that gate, it will fall into this area. It's like, I don't know, I have so much stuff already, like minor things here and there, like that accidentally fall in. And I think once you remove the rear bumper, you probably can take it off and then remove all that stuff. Yeah, at this point there is nothing I can see Rivian doing to improve that. So yeah, plenty of complaints, but also I have to say, for a first vehicle of a completely new manufacturer, and I think I already mentioned that in one of my previous videos, I think Rivian did a great job. I love the vehicle, my wife loves the vehicle. Sometimes when I have to go somewhere, I honestly don't know which vehicle to take, because all of them are exciting, and Rivian is equally exciting, and it's very cheap to run when especially when you're charging at home. Works great, whole stuff, spacious, very nice interior, fast. Did I mention it's fast? But it's super fast. And even my wife loves smoking people from the traffic lights, because it's just so easy to do. You just push the pedal and boom, you have your 3 seconds to 60. Not gonna lie, we really like the vehicle. There are some things in the vehicle that Rivian is already addressing. There are some things in the vehicles that probably still we're gonna find out, but in general, the vehicle, the quality of the exterior work and the interior parts, it's great. I cannot complain about that, except stuff that I've already complained about. But the service situation, I feel like it's something that needs some serious attention from Rivian. They are selling more cars, which is great for the company, because that's the revenue that they are getting. But the more cars you have on the road, the bigger issue with the service is. I've seen on their map, there's a lot of service centers. Atlas is here. There's a lot of service centers that they want to open, but I don't see progress with that. I know that there's a labor shortage and hard to find people to do that, but the more vehicles you have on the road, the more issues with service you're gonna have, the longer it's gonna take for vehicles to get repaired, and there's gonna be even bigger issue. For a premium vehicle, like, I don't know, even the Genesis, like the premium Hyundai that you have, they are gonna bring you a loaner. They are gonna service the car like you don't even think about the service, right? That's the premium experience you get from a manufacturer, and that's something I expect from a car that costs like 90 grand now. I don't think I'm saying anything new. I'm sure Rivian is aware of that, but if the situation with service does not improve, a lot of people just gonna complain about it. They will stop buying Rivians. I've seen people forums saying, I tried to get service, I did not like the experience, so I will not continue be using the Rivian product. That's very disappointing. I really want the company to succeed because I think they are onto something here. I hope they address this thing with service. But I don't want to finish. I don't want to finish on this sad note. I'm gonna say it again. I love this vehicle. The way I am able to haul around the whole family, haul stuff from Home Depot or Lowe's, actually do it pretty fast. And when I'm doing like a 65-70 miles per hour on the highway, this hood flaps. I mean, like, look at it. It's just so easy to bend here. I like not permanently bent, but it just at that speed we're just like flapping around. I know that it has locks here and there, so it's probably not gonna open by accident, but it's still kind of scary to see. Not sure I'm a fan of that. I've never seen that doing in other cars. I wish Rivian would make it more enforced or maybe a little bit thicker. It is what it is at this point. Speaking of thicker things, I would say paint here, and I mentioned that in one of the previous videos, that the amount of orange peel that I'm seeing is like crazy. And the quarter panel that was repainted after a scratch doesn't have that much, like manual repainting of the panel in the body shop has less of the orange peel than the factory paint that I'm seeing here right now. So yeah, paint is also very thin and scratches very easily. I had some stuff in the truck bed and I had a tarp over the sides of the bed, and I can see where the tarp actually scratched, like the micro scratches, but still there are plenty of those in the paint, so it scratches very easily. Going back to the hood, I was actually gonna say that the weird issue, and I know it's probably like a first world problem or 1% of the first world problem, but it's like where do you put groceries in this car when you are shopping? Because what I mean is when you open the hood, it's like to put bags in here, especially I don't know if my wife goes shopping, it's pretty hard to lift the bags and put them here in the front. Then you have this cool feature with the gear guard, right? But then it's like it's not really convenient to put a bunch of bags in there. It's kind of So actually what I wanted to mention, speaking of the hood, what I like how Ford F-150 Lightning did this, when like the whole thing here opens so you have easy access to the hood. That is actually pretty awesome. So combining that, it's not easy to put stuff in the front, so like you can't put many bags here in the gear tunnel, and then once you start putting things in the truck bed, the bags are starting flapping around, and so that's kind of not very convenient. I think my wife ends up putting some stuff in the front and then some in the back seat, which is probably not the best decision, but that's the decision you have to make with Rivian. Okay, another thing I wanted to address with Rivian. So like I said, we are at 18,000 miles, and I did a state inspection about a month ago, and the guy who did the inspection, he told me that the tires are probably going to be done soon. He said maybe like 3,000-5,000 miles left. So with 18,000, so another 3 to 5, so 21,000-23,000 miles, which is kind of expected on a heavy vehicle like this, but still not the best news, because essentially once you factor the tire cost and mounting and balancing, it's essentially 2K for 21-inch wheels. So yeah, I wish they would last longer. And for 21-inch road wheels, this is essentially the only option available at the moment. And considering that we are not doing any like significant off-roading, I don't want to like switch to off-road wheels that probably gonna last a little bit longer, but the range is gonna suffer. I hope that there's going to be better options for the road wheels, 21-inch, so we'll see. One thing that we did as a modification to our Rivian, we installed the running boards here. Definitely helps with entering and exiting the vehicle. So even though Rivian, in one of the updates, they added a kneel mode where vehicle lowers when you stop, so it helps you actually exiting and entering the vehicle. But if you are on the shorter side, so vertically challenged, then kneel mode is still like might not be enough, especially for my mother-in-law. She came from Ukraine and she's 86 years old, so getting into the high vehicle like that is a bit challenging. And she was super happy when we got the running boards, and now it's much easier to get in the vehicle, in out of the vehicle. So I started with the front. This thing still works. This flaps inside. The interior is great. Like I said, CarPlay absence bums me out. Overall, the interior works great. Running boards, gear tunnel turned out not as useful as I think it would, but still, like, I just carry a bunch of stuff for the truck. One thing that I'm kind of proud about is that our gear tunnel still works, and I open it almost daily, even though every time I do that I pray so it just not get stuck. And to prove that, I'll just try and open it right now, hoping that it will not jam for the video, you know, because that might happen. Makes scary noises while opening and closing, and like I said, I'm praying that it's just not gonna jam. I know that Rivian is working on the newer model of the automatic tonneau cover, and they hopefully gonna do the retrofit, and they will start with those that have already the powered tonneau broken. I not gonna lie, I lubed the slides here on both sides several times. Hopefully it helps. I don't know 100%. I've read on Reddit from people that even those who did loop the slides still would get their tonneau cover stuck. So maybe it's just one of those things that really works on this car. I'm not gonna complain. I like it, so why not? Since I'm already in the back, straps in the back are just irreplaceable. I brought like 50 sheets of the drywall in there, or I was hauling some heavy stuff from Costco or some other big things, and I recently did a run with a lot of medical supplies for Ukraine, and I just strapped everything in the back, and it works. Since I'm already talking about stuff in the back here, I wanted to mention that the compartment here with the spare wheel is such a pain in the ass to clean. One time I went to grab some soil for the property, like a ton and a half. Was it a cubic yard? Something like that. Like hefty yard. Yeah, I remember the guy in the tractor who put the soil in the bed. He said there's a hefty yard in there. And I had a tarp that I would put soil on, but it actually, the tarp actually tore, and some of the soil went into the bed. So I started cleaning, and this area, once you get something in there, it's essentially impossible to clean. It's just such a pain in the ass. I don't know, it's like they have to come up with something better for this. This is painful. Another thing that I wanted to talk about Rivian that I noticed, and I notice it more and more, is a lot of noise in suspension. It was there from the very beginning of when we got the car. I would say it gets worse, and I think I know the reason for it, and that's the reason why I'm doing the service appointment in September. Which brings me to a point about service. I already mentioned that we had several mobile appointments, and it's kind of easy. You call the service hotline, they schedule you like few weeks in advance. There's the guy who comes to you and fixes easy problems that are, I don't know, do not require the vehicle to be on the lift. But that noise in the suspension, Rivian reached out to us and said that, oh, there's this problem with half shafts, so you should come to the service center and we will fix it, no charge, blah blah blah. Great. And that email was in June. Oh, actually, I think email was in May, but I called them in June, and the appointment that they assigned to me was in September, which is kind of okay because there is nothing life-threatening. The car is not immobilized, so I can still use it. Obviously, there are probably more urgent things for other people to fix, so I'm fine with it. But you have to remember that in my case, and I live in Philly suburbs, about 40 minutes to southwest from Philly. The nearest service center at this point, when I'm recording this video, is still in Brooklyn, New York. There is a plan to open the service center in Trenton, New Jersey, which would be pretty close to me, but it's not there yet. So in order to get something bigger than a mobile appointment can fix, I have to go to New York, drive for 2.5 hours, and then I probably have to drop off the vehicle. And that's where the fun part starts, because you never know what you're gonna get. Well, you can get a loaner, or you can get the credits to Uber, which takes you to Enterprise, and they hook you up with a shitty rental that has 100,000 miles on it, drinks gas and stuff like that, which is not pleasant. The worst part is that I called them in July and I told them, guys, you know that I'm gonna have an appointment in September. Why can't you just reserve a loaner for that particular date if I have to drop off the vehicle? And they're like, oh, we don't know, we cannot do that. When someone leaves the vehicle in the service center and then the vehicle stays there for like 2 weeks untouched, what the hell? I mean, if you know that you don't have a capacity to service a vehicle, schedule the appointment for that date when you have a capacity. Because I have to agree to, if it's a loaner, then it's okay. You still get to drive a normal vehicle. But if it's a rental, it's like people were talking about like cheap Kias and stuff like that, and you look in the application that the vehicle is stuck there for 2 weeks without anyone doing anything to it, why did I have to drop it off at that particular date? So that's a lot of complaints that I've been reading about service. So to be honest, I'm not looking forward to that service appointment, because I don't know how that's gonna go, whether I get a loaner or I get a rental, whether the vehicles get stuck in the service for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month. Never a good experience. While we were putting our stuff back into the car, there were people there saying, oh, cool truck, what is it? Or like, oh, I know this, it's a Rivian, right? Fully electric pickup truck. So people becoming more aware, and they are still happy to see those. But you have to have a product, and you also have to have what comes with the product. Product is great. Let's make the rest of it better as well.